We got lost. All right, we're going to look at this painting from this side for a little while. All right, and then we're take your eyes, fix on that.
The red is really sweet.
Yeah.
I love it.
Oh. I had so much fun yesterday, I gotta tell you. I really did. It was good. It was all.
So did we.
Yeah, it was nice to see that. We're all laughing like, it was so painful but fun.
The night when you were too bad.
Yeah, that's a good sign. It's like, what am I doing in my life? What is this painting thing that we do? Why? Why do we do this?
Why do I feel trapped?
Why do I feel trapped? What's going on? Why do I want to escape from my painting all the time? So there's obviously a lot of psychology that goes into it. I think you recognized that last night when you got home. So painting is a large part of it is putting this stuff down, but the psychological part plays on you, and there's a lot of existentialism, and that's why when you look at the history of art and you read the history of a lot of these artists, I think a lot of them went through. You can take your jacket off. No, you're not. So there's a large part of that, and putting your heart into your painting and being honest about it. That's what we spoke about yesterday. There's no separation between that. If you're going to take anything away from this, is like always be true to your work, whatever it is that you do. So don't try and separate your personal life from the art. If you're doing that, it's kind of like you're doing yourself a disservice. So meet yourself where you're at now. You could be in a really shitty place, and that's okay. You put that down on your canvas. Nothing wrong with that, because then you'll be able to see it, and then the next step, you just pull yourself out of that, and you just continue to do so. And there's moments when you're going to come into the studio and you can't paint, and you're going to feel horrible about not being able to paint, so feel horrible and then just leave the studio, because I can't paint today. You're gone. That's okay. Just step in. You're not feeling good, step out. That's also okay, right? So what I'd like to do is, I'd like to hear about your experience yesterday, because I need a laugh. But in all honesty, I would like to hear about your experience. I did notice a few things. First of all, I will say that by the time you got to your third or fourth drawing, you caught on very quickly. I started to see, yeah, you did. I started to see that you started to quickly understand the sort of the flexibility of the brush. And some of like putting down the stroke and making the mark have a statement and making it speak for you. So I recognize that there's a finessing that needs to be worked at, and finessing takes time. So don't beat yourself up on it. It's not in 3 days that we're going to do this. But these are pointing things out to you so that you know that you're on the right path. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Right? So how you were handling the brush, I started to notice that, okay, we're starting to understand the aspect of the connection between the arm to the heart. It's there. There was a lot of head in the first couple of drawings. Like you guys were like, oh my God, what does he want me to do, And how am I going to do it like him? And it's like, no, that's not the point. The point is, this is what we have to talk about today, is you're doing it your way. I meet you where you're at. You'll meet me. I come to you. And that's every single one of you is going to produce 15 different drawings and paintings. I have to be recognizing that. And that's not for you to recognize what I do. So I'm coming to you, all right? So you can relax with that. It's like, I'm going to meet you where you're at. We'll look at your psychology. We'll look at your the way that you approach a painting, and then we'll move from there. This is how I operate. Where are you at? You're here. Fine. Let's look at the next step. And all we have to do is bring all we have to do together. Let's go to the next step. That's it. And once you're there, good. Let's go to the next step. The next step can take 3 weeks, but it's okay. We'll get there. Don't beat yourself up on it. It's part of the process. So I did see that yesterday, and I think all of you, in the short time period that we had, you had about a couple of hours, you did come up with some pretty interesting compositions that we can actually work with today. So that's good, and that's all due to your skills of painting. A lot of you have held a brush and you understand that. Some of you have excellent draftsmanship skills and able to hold a brush, and I recognize that too. The struggle comes in sometimes in having to make it fit so that it's real in the context of a certain terms of reality. There's nothing real real about this. You have to remember that. It just looks good. So just make it look good. Okay, don't get so stuck on this, like, it has this proportion to that proportion. No, it's like, you are the Walt Disneys. You are the Walt Disneys and the creators of your work. Remember, I was stressing that so much. Is your painting going to be a fantasy painting? Is it going to be whimsical? Is it going to be playful? That's everything that you decide on. This is your show. It's not my show, it's your show. But if you get bogged down on certain things like the ideology of what people are expecting, okay, then that's it. You're stuck. You're going to be really stuck with that. So you're in command. Does that make sense? Okay. Would you be willing to accept that? It makes sense, but do you want to accept that? You see, that's a big difference. It's like, would you own that? I tell you, you're in command. And then it's like, the only thing you have to abide by is just a really solid composition. Because, I turned mine upside down and it still works. Composition works. You see? That's why I said, let's get used to it this way. There's certain things that I have to do to it now to rebalance it. But overall, like 85% of it is there. Does it make sense? No, but at the compositional level, it does. So you're drawn to it automatically. Okay? So today what we're going to do is, I'd like to go over some of these sketches and show you just how close you are to actually having a solid foundation as a sketch. One of the things that I emphasized yesterday, I showed you 2 ways to compose, right? I showed you which is this way over here, where basically I broke it down, 1/3, 2/3, off to the side, and I emphasized, keep it simple. Keep it very, very simple. And I think there were only 3 of you that did that. Everybody else went here. And I did say it when I went here. I said, this is a lot more complicated. Because some people said, what do you do when you have a 4x4? I said, we're getting into some complicated areas, but for the sake of demonstration, because I'm here, I'll show you, which is what I did. And then you all ran off and said, I'm going to do what he did. And you all went, you tanked. Okay? And that's okay, because it's necessary to see that, so that at the same time, you need to see, if this is one of your intentions, you need to measure the distance between here and here and understand the kind of work that's in there to get you to that point. I'm not saying you're not going to get there, you will, but sometimes you bite off more than you can chew, right? So we small bites, and I brought you the example that these small bites, I still do them myself. After like over 20 years of experience as an artist, I still take those small bites, they're necessary. So there's no difference between you and I with that. It's like, take the small bite and learn from it. And then take another one, until you feel more confident when you start venturing a little further out. When you do get to this level over here, you'll see, as you've seen, there's so many things that you have to start to think about. And so when it comes to composition, what are some of the elements, just work them out to me, some of the elements that we need to do in order to have a strong composition.
Large and small.
Do what?
Large and small.
Large and small, so variation in shape, right? Remember, shapes, not flowers, right? We're looking at everything in terms of shapes, not flowers, per se.
Contrast and movement.
So the stronger point would be?
2/3, 1/3.
2/3, 1/3. All right, 2/3, 1/3, definitely. So how you break down the composition, whether it be rectangular or be square, remember to somewhere have either your 1/3 here, 2/3, 1/3, 2/3, or 2/3, 1/3. That has to come into play, right? Then there's the elements of design, like in terms of repetition. You may end up having colors that will repeat themselves. Those are elements of design, also called gestalt, whereby your eye makes the connections and fills in the blanks in between the spaces. So you don't have to be so literal about everything. You can allow yourself the space to be a little more free. What else is there?
Triangular.
Triangular, and triangle is very important in there. As much as you have this going on, establishing a triangle somewhere, whether it be with a shape, okay, a contrast, all right, that's where the contrast comes in. But the contrast comes in because of the determination that you have as how you're going to make the eye flow. The triangle is also very important, definitely. And the rectangle is also important, the shape of it. So if you have a triangle, and then you put a rectangle in between here on the triangle. Remember, that's going to be a very interesting composition. So what we have is that the rectangle right here, and then we have a triangle. Let me see. Here's one triangle, and there's another triangle. It's almost like building a house. It's all centered. All right. here, you can have these little pivot points that will direct your eye here. And remember the shapes, vary the shapes, right? Vary the shapes. Maybe some over here, and then, all right. What do we see about the weaves? We talked about main actors, supporting actors, background. How did that register for you? How was that analogy? Does that work? Mm-hmm. Does that work? Breaking it down that way so you understand like who the main characters are and who you really want to stand out in the paintings. So another analogy is if you look at some of the paintings from the 13th, no, let's go back to 8th, 9th century. Some of those religious paintings of Christ being crucified. There was the main characters. There's a strong triangle right there, right? So you have Christ on the cross, and then you have Mary, and then you have Joseph or somebody else, all looking up right to Christ. So there's a triangle, right? And then the actual rectangle within is the actual Christ figure with the cross smack in the center of the triangle, right? So immediately your composition is solid. It's like right there. And then they're the main characters, right? And then the supporting characters could be maybe the soldiers on the side, like weeping or playing dice or prodding them with a stick, right? And these are all things that we've seen in religious paintings. And then the background characters are the big billowy clouds and the cupids coming in. They're forming the X formation, right? So these guys are over here and they're forming an X. So that is a solid composition. Most of it occurs within the 2/3 area, and then the 1/3 area is where some of the supporting paraphernalia would be. It could be a spear, it could be a sword, it could be a cape and draping itself this way. That's the background stuff. And in reference to flower paintings or florals, the background stuff ends up being the leaves, the foliage, the branches. The sword is actually a twig. The cape could be a leaf, could be foliage. Do you see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So you start looking at those paintings and you're like, if this was a floral painting rather than Christ on the cross, and I were to redraw it, like how would I do this composition? Speaking of Christ, So when you start to make those reference points, those analogies, you see it. You can see it. It's been used forever. We just don't recognize it. Now I'm going to take you to Rembrandt, and it's a single portrait, a brilliant portrait, and he's just standing there like this. Remember that his arm going up his head has that triangular formation. It also has that continual balance like this. Whatever is here, below here, is not emphasized. It's in darkness. So whatever is here is in the light. So your eye is automatically going to go into the light. So that's where contrast comes in. Right? You can emphasize the main characters by shining more light on them, making them more vibrant, brighter, and then everything else behind it can be muted in color. Right? So that's your supporting crew, your supporting characters. And in the background, you can mute it even down, even more. You can darken those. So you have like a dark tone, a mid-tone, and a very vibrant tone. So the painting does this kind of thing. Make sense? Yeah. All right, so your turn. You tell me how you felt yesterday. What kind of experience you gathered? Any questions? Yeah.
Don't worry.
She's first. Well, you had an interesting thing because she said. She said, I figured it out yesterday why I want to escape the canvas. And she said, because I've been studying with Chinese teacher, right?
Yeah.
Right, what's his name?
Leon Zen.
Leon Zen?
Yeah.
And so he said, he tells me all the time, you need to leave the canvas, you need to go outside the canvas. I said, yeah, that's exactly what I told you. An Eastern way of approaching painting, you travel outside of the canvas. In Western, we don't, we keep you on the inside. That's just the way our history of art developed in that way. And Eastern art, which is way older than ours, is always about the journey. It's about the travel. So they don't want you to stay here. They want this perpetual movement. That's why you have 3 or 4 panels, one next to the other. So for you, for that kind of work, if you're really embedded in there, then take 2 or 3 canvases, put them together, and just flow from one area to the other. But you'll still have that situation at a certain point where you're going to have to come back in again. You know, I recently presented it within the Western context. You know, I've seen beautiful panels of Eastern paintings, which I love, and they just take you right off the canvas at a certain point. But it's very subtle, and they keep you engaged quite a bit because every panel has its own story. Remember, most of it moves this way. Okay, it goes this way, all the way to the end, and then the story is told. And then you kind of begin again, and that's how we do it. Okay?
I'll tell you my experience.
Hmm?
I cried. I was a crier.
Hey,
I went
great-
home
great
because I knew
food.
I had to go home to my 3 kids, and I was so frustrated. And I'm like, okay, I can't keep this out of my brain, but I have to take care of my kids, and all. Life still happens. And
Yeah, life still
so
happens.
I'm just like looking at everything. I'm looking at where's the triangle? where is it? You know, and I'm like, I think I mean, I've only done 4 paintings, so
Wow.
I looked at those to make sure I understood composition.
Right.
Because you choose a photo based on what you feel, and
Yes.
if it does something to
Right.
you. And I saw that I had composition. And then I was like, well, what makes me tick? Like, why do I choose those photos? And I found out that light is my source. So that would be my supporting role for my main characters.
Yeah.
Because everything I paint is always being shown by the light coming in.
Right.
And then the
Good.
dark coming up.
And then the dark coming up, supporting the light, so the light can shine.
And I'm an emotional painter, so I
Right.
feel that, you know.
Yeah, which would be very good for you to get into abstract expressionism at some point.
Okay. So then I simplified it with shapes,
Yeah,
and I started looking at photos of flowers that felt good to me.
and always,
And then I was looking for the shapes in those.
yeah.
So I'm actually looking at energy sources because that's where I feel painting. So I saw an energy force in the middle of each flower.
Beautiful,
So where the light came
Beautiful.
in. And then that was my circle
yeah,
statement. And then there's triangles happening with the sun coming in.
Right.
And then the actual composition was.
see that? So you saw it.
So yeah. And then I started sketching with my 3-year-old this morning. So I kind of cheated, but I just did some
No, bring in the
sketches.
3-year-olds all the time, because
Yeah,
you
so
steal
he
from
was
them
like
as much as
sketching
you
with
can.
me, and I was like just doing basic,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
and
absolutely.
I focused just on tulips because those were so simple.
Right.
So
Yeah, okay,
that
so
was
look,
my
that's.
process, and now I
well,
feel grounded again.
Congratulations, because that's, yeah, that's,
Until the rug gets ripped out from you.
Yeah.
Today, after what he has for today.
Well, just go back to that moment of feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, congratulations, that's really like a breakthrough, because when you're able to see it, and then immediately what you did is you sat down with your kids and you started to play with them. So you're not out of your range at all. I mean, you just sat down and you said, let's do this together. You're learning from them. Remember, those are going to be your greatest teachers right there, especially when it comes to art. And yeah, use them, use them absolutely. It's one point you have that as a source. So what I'm going to say is more than 80% of the work, if you can see that, is being taken care of. The rest is learning how to render, okay, how to actually bring it forward. So don't get frustrated with that part, because that will take some time. It's a question of adjusting your style to what you want to say, but you see it,
Right.
okay? Most important, if you can't see it and you can't render, or you're learning that, because you said you've done 4 paintings, you're in the beginning stages of painting. If you can't see it and you can't paint, that's extremely frustrating, but you've taken care of a major chunk here, okay? So even if I were to give you this little content stick and I'd say you can do something with this, you're capable of doing something with it, okay? And that's the key. That's really the key in the whole thing. So it's great, fantastic. Yeah. Yours are good, man. Yours are like watershed. Like you reached a moment of understanding. And like,
Can only go up.
yeah, exactly. It's frustrating. I mean, hell, it's been frustrating for me too. When I was beginning, and it's like it's the reason why I give the workshops is to prevent, like, guide you along the way, because a lot of things that I wasn't aware of, I just want to make them aware for you now, so that you don't have to go through the same turmoil. But you will establish your own turmoil, because I'll tell you something to you in the face, but you won't listen till you. It's just part of nature. It's just the way things are. It's all right. As long as I say it, then I'm like, it's on tape too, you see, so it's like I said.
The rebellious inner child.
Yeah, that's exactly it. The rebellious inner child. It's let the child loose. Like, let the child out. Honestly, you'd be surprised at what the child can do. And there are no mistakes, right? So if suddenly you decide to go in a much more abstract, expressionistic way, nothing wrong with that. You just adhere to your truth. Right? So we need that. We always need that in the world. We need to put your truth out there and like your expression.
My dad always said to me, don't ask me what to do, because you're just going to do what you want to do anyway. So don't even ask me.
It's very threatening to me, so it's like,
Sounds like a conversation of my life.
any other comments about yesterday that,
I have one thing to say that I'm struggling with.
yes.
Is my whole lifestyle has always been structure and detail. Okay. So everything I do has to be structured, detailed.
Okay.
And doing this stuff is very difficult for me.
Why would you not do this with your lifestyle structure and detail if that's what you're accustomed to?
Well, because this is supposed to be where you kind of just let her go.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's hard for me to let her go.
Yeah.
So I have to have it really, I'm in a little box and everything has to be in
Okay,
order.
so how about we keep all of that? We keep that little box that you say, all right? I would make one change to that. And I would say, we're gonna keep the structure, we're gonna keep the detail. Well, how big do you work usually?
Pardon?
How large do you work?
I've done big things, but it's always takes me forever because everything has to be.
Dawn's
I'm
got
trying to
some
get
gummies for you.
faster.
You're trying to go faster?
I'm trying,
Is
but
that really something that you wanna
Yeah.
explore?
yeah, I spend too much time doing little things when I should be just doing the big
Okay,
stuff.
why and the should? This is what I'm trying to get at. Why and the should? Like, what's the should part? Who told you should?
The dentist part of it.
Just pretty much my history of what I've
So you're
done.
like,
What I've done.
you're
Everything
like-
has to be.
Right, so you're done
Very
with this.
precise.
You're done with this, and now you want to move into
Yeah.
But the composition is your structure, that's
Yeah,
order.
that's exactly what I'm getting at. You have the composition and the structure, which you need that. We all do, right? So you're right in alignment with
So
that.
it's you just trying to loosen up?
Yeah.
You're having a problem
I
with?
need to
Just
probably
being
have a
free?
couple glasses of wine before I come in.
One thing we're going to do is, since you're already accustomed to working large, we're going to basically put the image on the canvas the way you normally would do it. And then, like she just said, we're going to cut off, which arm do you work with? Your right, we're going to cut off your right arm, and you're going to work with your left arm.
Oh, geez.
And then we'll put down a basic drawing, and you're going to go in there and paint with that. And it's going to be like, it's a pardon the pun, like pulling teeth. But this, we're going to break that habit. And this is, you said I should, and you want to. There's a voluntary wanting to go in that area. Let's do it. Let me help you with
Here
that.
comes the boss.
Yeah, and so, no, that'll work. And it's just, what's going to happen is, it's going to be a jolt to your left, right. Years of training, come on, you know, the precision work that you've done, obviously. And so now you're bringing back this little child that's saying, but I want to play, you know. Let it go. Like, if the brush wants to go here, just follow it. And if the brush wants to go here, just let it go there. Okay? And then don't freak out. Don't come in with your right hand and start doing this. Just let it go. So we'll work personally one-on-one with that. That's and this is what I want to hear from all of you is like, what are some of your goals? You know, because yesterday I needed to see where you were at in terms of like how much do you listen and how do you process. And no, which is good. That's all good that came out of it. But that we can remedy that. Large is for you though, because you've been doing everything so small. That large and movement and pulling back and if you've been working on a 4-foot canvas, then you gotta go 6 by 6. You know, that's you see. That's exactly it. Yeah, you're like, no.
That's why the 1-inch brush scares me because I'm used to the little tiny brush.
No.
1 inch. What about
But
it?
he made a threat that he's gonna take away any
This is going to
one-inch
be your
brushes.
brush. This is going to.
I have to take a scissors and cut some of the bristles off.
I'm going to get a bat. It's going to be like. No, that's where we're going with you, and also like working with these palettes like this, where you're going to run the paint. I mean, you're going to let loose, and it's going to look like something you don't recognize. It probably won't be perfect and precise, but you're going to have to live with that. You know, just stand your ground and do another one, do another one. It's in you. I mean, there's a strong desire to do it, so we have to coax it out. I mean, it'll take a little practice. Yeah. And on that note also, Jen,
Yes.
can I grab your paintings for a second? All right. So I'm just going to point these out specifically because this is where we have a dilemma, and you're all going to come across this point right here. So you've all been working in a very methodical way of learning how to paint, and basically how to use the brush to a certain capacity and grading your work. It's all fine. It's all a great technique. And then yesterday, as I'm walking around, I see Jen pulled this one over here, and then she jumped into one of those, and then she jumped into here, and then actually from here she went to here. It got complicated. We said pull back, keep it simple. And well, how am I going to do it with just two tulips? I said shape, variation in size, obviously, color displacement, 1/3, 2/3, 2/3, 1/3, and then she broke it down this way, so 2/3, 1/3. And then she goes, but I don't paint this way. I said, well, you just did. I don't paint this way. I'm like, but you just did. So what she was trying to say is like, and what I read into it is, I'm not comfortable. I'm like, no, I'm sorry, but I disagree with you. Completely disagree with you, because you have to understand that when you're out of your mind and you're painting, this sort of brushwork, which is, I'll tell you this is like a masterful brushstroke. There's an incredible
What kind?
Masterful.
Oh.
There's an incredible amount of confidence in this brushstroke. You see? Do you see the confidence? Mm-hmm. You see how she just picked up the paint and just let the paint glide? Okay? She wasn't thinking, she was out of her mind, literally, I mean, in the sense that she was truly connected to her heart. And the child came out. Here's a child. And so as soon as I saw it and I said, we're going in that direction, she put that child back in the box and sealed the shut. She goes, but this is what I paint. I'm like, okay, but this is what you're going to paint from here on. Mm-hmm. And I felt her go, pull back. And I'm like, no, you're coming back here. Because which one do you enjoy the most? She goes, I love this. I said, so why are we not doing this? So what would prevent any of you from moving into something like this? Tell me. Like, what's going on in your head, Jen, what's going on in your head that would prevent you from moving into an area like this?
Well, it's not how I've always visualized my paintings. I mean, it's so different. Mm-hmm. But I thought long and hard about it last night, and when I first started painting, it's typically more like this. Mm-hmm. And I'll like it, but then I'll try to refine
What are you refining it for? You see, I like
for some other ideal that I have.
Right. So those ideals, all those people, outside. Because what happens is when you start creating this right here in all earnestness and honesty, painting from the heart, which is the main topic of this entire workshop, this starts to come forward. And you can't deny this. If you put that back in the box, then you're tightening up you're secluding yourself from something that is meaningful for you. And so we can't go there. You see, it's almost like once you see it, you can't undo it. You just can't. It's like it's staring at you right in your face. So this will require work, but there won't be struggle. The struggle won't be there. There's going to be an exploration, and that's the work. You're actually exploring. Same thing with you. It's going to be like that. You're going to be exploring, not working. And so I look, as an artist myself who has had like years of experience, I look at these brushstrokes, and I'm like, that's brilliant. Those brushstrokes. Those are the kind of brushstrokes that takes years to strive for and to get. And why would I have you put that back in the box? I'm like, there's no way I would do that. You know, as an instructor, I'm looking at that and I'm like, okay, we need to work with this. There's the layering, there's the security of picking up the brush and just going for it. Even the way you just did it over here. This is really hard paper to work on, by the way. And yet there's an ease and there's a playfulness and there's a facility to this. Like, why would I tell you to go back and do this realistic? I mean, it'd be such a disservice. And also for myself, I'd be setting myself up like constant wall of like push and pull between us. When I'm like, no, the easy path is this. Does everybody see it? Right? Isn't it just like there's a playfulness to it, there's an appeal to it? So, you know, you take this and you blow this up to 5 feet by 5 feet because that's the size at which you would be working these. See the difference now? So 5 feet by 5 feet, what does that mean? How big is your brush? Right? You know, 3 inches, 4 inches. How are you extending your arm? Now you're into it. Now you're pulling the paint and you're pushing it. There's a lot of room for play. You know, your sandbox just got a lot bigger. And there's no one in there with you right now, which is great. At some point you invite somebody in, but right now it's like, stay off.
So is that an inverted triangle and the line takes you across the top and brings
Well,
you
it's all
back
here.
down
I mean,
to
look,
one?
up, down,
Yeah.
boom, simple. And this is the other thing I was stressing. Simplicity. Simplicity. Folks, keep it simple, please. Like, don't bite off more than you can chew right now. Like, you do this, and once you get it right, for your sake, do another one, and do another one, and do another, the same thing. Just keep doing it over and over and over. Do 100 of these if you have to. Till you're like, okay, I'm ready to graduate, I'm gonna put a 3rd flower in there. Okay? Yeah. This is, it's through repetition. Remember, we're reprogramming your brain. Like, your neural pathways have been carved into a certain direction. I'm coming in and I'm like, let's go this way. I'm like, no, I'm like, this way, let's go. And it's through repetition that we'll get it. Okay? And some of you have never painted this way, so you can start right here. That's also good. You know, fresh slate, boom. So do you see the value of having a stroke like this? Do you see how that twirly magic is in there? Jen, how do you feel about it? Great, awesome. So happy you
She's
agree.
saying, I'm doing it.
Yeah, I mean, you can start with a 24, but I mean, honestly, in my personal experience, when I was painting with my left hand, this is the kind of stuff that was coming out. And then I actually started with 24 canvases, and I'm like, it's good, but it's still restricting. I went immediately 6 feet by 5 feet, and then everything changed. My entire career took off.
Should
from
I
that.
try with my left hand?
Yes, absolutely. All of them. I mean, well, all of them. Hold on. Ooh, take that back. You do it. Some of you are in a position where you still need to work with your right hand, so let's just keep it there. But when you do get frustrated and really want to break through, yeah, switch your brains. Okay. Yeah, that would be good for you to do that today. And by all means, like, do not get frustrated by it. Remember that we are here to test the grounds, and you have somebody here who can guide you and say yes, yea, nay. That's what my role is here right now. Okay. So any questions about this? Like, anything like you're wondering, like, why I'm harping on this, and y'all get it? Yeah. All right. So when you see this coming out of you, don't kill it. Like, encourage it. Coax it out. Coax it out. So this will translate back to when you work with David on your portraits in this style. Your portraits are not gone. Like, whatever you've been doing with David won't be gone. Like, all of that is still there. It's just going to come forward in a different expression. Right? So that sort of, the academic background that you have will be useful for you because you'll be able to check your proportions and your composition. But the expression of it, like when you attack that canvas with your brush, it's no longer like this. It's like, boom, boom, pull out. That's it. It's much more effective. You saw me going at the canvas yesterday. I wasn't being delicate. I was pushing the paint this way and then pushing the paint this way and then going down this way and then going like this. And then you see the brush strokes are much more expressive. Right? So when you do your portraits and you're doing 24 or 48 by 48 foot portrait, and you're coming in with a big walking brush and you didn't see all those strokes. You know, that's beautiful. So, you know, you go back and you look at something like the Kooning, or, you know, you'll see that. You see that expression in there. Okay. Any questions? No? Now, some of you worked small and you knew what you were doing, and simple, but look how strong this is. All right? We're ready to go with this. Very good. Very good. Yeah. He did a bunch of them. He did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Says, which one do you like the most? I said, which one do you like the most? He pointed at this one. Well, you're right. There you go. Okay, but he was able to see it. So here we are. Here's another one that's also equally strong. Okay. And she did a bunch, and she said, which one do you like the most? I said, which one do you like the most? She was like, I don't think I like any of them. And I'm like, well, you have to be able to recognize that because you've arrived. She goes, I did? And I'm like, yeah. So I go, so keep doing them till you recognize that you've arrived. And so this is another strong one. Okay, so, you know, what do I see here? Well, do you permit me to draw on this for a second? Can I draw on this?
Oh, yeah.
Sketch on this?
Make sure you sign it for me.
Here's the vase, obviously. Okay. Here's some of the branches, right? So let's see the vase kind of has this like, you know, the branches, you know, the twigs, make them go all the way to, make them, and don't just flare them out that way. And then we have a leaf, right? We have a flower right here. We have another leaf, and another leaf. And then we have another flower here, possibly with an opening here, which really is, I guess, to something here. More foliage. Seems to be another flower here. Right. More foliage maybe in this one. Maybe some twigs. Foliage. Another flower we can place over here. This can even go off the page. So this is what I saw. And then you drop this back down. Does everybody see that though? Mm-hmm. All right, so I saw that, and this is the other part, which was her trying to do this. The struggle was real here, but here you were able to put it together really quickly, fast enough, because it was something that you recognized. So this is where we play. We play with this. Eventually you're going to jump to this, okay, in due time. Because in reality, in order for you to jump to this, it's a very simple move. You basically remove, first of all, let me just finish with this. So here's your 2/3, right? So here's your 1/3 and here's your 2/3. In time, as you continue to proceed along with these paintings, if we remove this vase right here, we recrop this entire image. Okay? Look at that. Mm-hmm. All right? This is that. You get it? This is why I said keep it simple and come this way. Because at some point you're going to remove that vase. You're just going to wipe the vase out, and what you're going to left with is the big part. This part over here. You see what I'm trying to do? It's like you're going to kick the stool off from under your feet, and then you're like, oh, I've done that before. Yeah, you have. You've done it so many times. Under this context, this makes you feel safe. This makes you feel safe. But in here, you're still not safe because you don't have a reference point to ground yourself. So to jump from this, or to jump immediately into this without having done this, that's where you can get discouraged very quickly. So do you see what's going on? Okay. So part of why I'm having you do these sort of vases, which a lot of you are like, it's so boring, No, it's not. Look at it in context of how it's an amazing stepping stone to where you're going to get to next. This is training. This is where you get your training. So when I do mine, it's like I look at the top part, which is 2/3, and I actually remove a lot of times the vase, and my stems is just sort of hanging there. And I look at the top part, and I'm like, if I blow that up, just that section to a 5x5 painting, is that going to work? Oh yeah, that's going to work. That's going to be a painting. You see? Yeah.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I had thought too. It's like, I want to do that. And when you suggested, doing a base,
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't really like them.
Right. Well, because it feels so static and it feels so traditional. But in terms of, remember, what you're learning from it.
Right.
Right. Because eventually, like, think of it like a stool. Like, Everything is on the stool. You're gonna kick that stool off one day and you're gonna have to deal with this composition, but you'll have had so much training that you'll be able to take that and translate it to a bigger format, okay? So that's part, it's like a subconscious thing that's happening. If you look at the overall, plus you're playing within context, it's sort of like, it's traditional, it's boring, I want to do something dynamic, or, you know, again, you're allowing an outside interference into your thought pattern as opposed to where you're at, exactly what you need to learn and what your schooling is, right? And then this is very viable. I just drew everything out for you right here. So there it is. You see? So you see why I said like do it with the vase and keep it simple, because you're gonna be painting one day. You're just gonna be painting this, just the way I do it. Okay. So there's all of that. So do go back to your drawing boards today and come up with something that is of this nature. Right? And when we do start to paint and stuff like this starts to happen, if it's an emergency, you can call me right away. And I'll come and see you. If you're about to wipe everything out, don't until I see it. And then we will talk about it and we'll direct ourselves that way. Now, for you who has all your open doors, close your doors and you come in this, okay? Train yourself to play with it here. Okay. And if some of you have, I've seen some of your compositions, like yours works, Mark, yours works. If you don't have the vase, I'll come around to all of you. And if you don't have the vase, and I see that it does work, I'll catapult you into there. But for some of you, use the vase. Okay? And so
I did that last night. I couldn't sleep, so I got up and sketched. Seriously, I sketched that. I brought them, so hopefully one of them's good enough. Because it was so easy to sketch the vase, and for me, I had the same experience. When I went to the vase and put the flowers and the leaves draped over it, and like you said, a flower over the, it's like every single one was like,
What do you mean?
They were getting okay. They said that by the time I got to the third and fourth one, I'm like, oh, I can do this on the big paper now.
Right. So remember,
But I couldn't yesterday. I mean, I couldn't do any of it. And I was coloring it in too. I mean, I was painting in every leaf. Like I couldn't distinguish.
Right. So that distinction.
I had no feeling of what was on my paper. I had no. I mean, I couldn't even tell that this was only in my mind. I knew there was supposed to be a flower there.
Right.
But it was all colored in the green, you know.
So what I just did here is like same thing with her, is that it was all bundled up, right? It's all like you can't really tell what's what.
Right.
So when you're using your brush, make the distinction. Like purposely make the distinction. Like go get that flower. Train your eye to go get that in place. And remember, I said yesterday, you're gonna call in Brad Pitt, right, into your flower. What is that going to look like? Who is the Brad Pitt? I need to see that. Yeah, you know, your audience is going to want to see that. It's going to see who are the best characters in here. What do they look like? Because right now they're all bundled up. But when I outlined it here, myself with my eye, I can see it. I can see what I can do. But if you're doing it and you can't see it, you have a problem. It's not going to be. If you can't see it here, you won't be able to see it here when you're rendering it. It's not by adding color. Not by adding color, you're tricking me yesterday. You don't have one color, you'll see. I still can't see it. The composition, right?
Yeah. Show me when you fold that and get rid of the base, where the triangle is, and where's the third on there.
Well, I can see that there's definitely a diagonal going this way. I see that there's one that drops this way. I can see that there's a curve going this way. And this leaf is taking me off the page, so I'll probably come in and turn this leaf around so it comes down this way. So I recreate the triangle. If it's weak, I always, I won't say, well, that's how I do it, I'm going to keep it that way. No, I'm going to adjust it, keep adjusting all the time till I get it to that point. But I mean, more than 80% is figured out. Like in your head, like really come in and visualize yourself breaking the vase, getting it out of there, and then you have this configuration to work with. Now, the configuration could be horizontal, by the way. It's like a landscape. You can also work with that. That's also a fun way to work. But if you decide to make it square, there you have it. If you decide to turn it this way, you still have to figure it out. Make sure that it works this way. This is why I turned my canvas this way. So if now I decide to work the canvas upside down, I have to recalibrate all my composition again. I'm not gonna say, oh, that's how I did it the first time. No, I wanna see what it looks like that. So now I go back in there and I recalibrate. The knowledge that I gave you will never ever leave you anymore. It can't. If you take that and you throw it out the window, you can take yourself a disservice. It's like you never took the workshop. You see? So now it's there. Boom. Like you can't deny it. Right? It's like an obligation, like feeding your chickens. You have to go every day. Same thing. So that's what I want to point out to you. So this becomes much more difficult when you're not in this stage first. Okay? Yep. So the same thing with you. When we work, you're painting, you're going to be in this stage with the vase and the whole thing. Except that we're not going into detail because your big fat brush of 5 inches can't give you detail. And your left arm is not going to allow you to get, but you're going to have to rely on something. Let's go find what that is. You see? That's the fun part.
All right, Carmelo, one thing. When you inverted your painting, I became kind of disoriented as to the 1/3, 2/3. Could you point it out?
Yeah. So what we have is we have the triangle over here, and we have the 2/3 over here. Okay, this part would represent the 1/3, and this part would be the 1/3, 2/3. So we have a problem, you see? That's exactly it. I'm disoriented too because I'm looking at it. I'm like, well, this pretty much establishes my 2/3. There's enough information over here, but these guys are fighting, and I've been saying it since yesterday. There's something weird about the balance of these two over here. And as soon as I turn it upside down, I'm like, yeah, this is taking up way too much importance. So I'm going to come on top of this, possibly with other flowers, and make this flower get pushed way back. But I see it. It's like I turned it upside down. That gnawing feeling that I had yesterday, I'm like, something's not right. And I was right. As soon as I turned it, I'm like, something's not right. And so it's recognizing that. That's why you turn the painting upside down. Now in your case, where you're going to be leaving the flower on the table, you don't turn it upside down. That's the composition you're working with. But when you start working with things like this, and that's why I kept saying yesterday, but be careful. I know you want to go in that area. So I'm giving you some warning. It's like it will be confusing. So go into an area where it's not. I have a screwdriver. So I borrowed your brush. I asked you, but you weren't here. and the application is very simple. But it's not like when you're doing a dama or varnish. You just go ahead and you lay it on.
Don't worry about brush strokes.
No, don't worry about brush strokes because you're painting on top of it, all right? And these type of brushes are excellent for that. They don't leave hairs behind. So do keep these handy in your studio. So there's enough on there. And I'm on the second coat of varnish. And
It's a mark brush.
yeah, it's gliding a lot better now. Okay.
Because it's the second coat?
Because it's the second coat, so you know what, the first coat has been absorbed. You'll see after once it's dry, you can come and run your fingers over it and you'll see it. So, how many of you took our workshop with Lisa once?
I did.
You
I
did?
did.
How did you like that?
Loved it.
Lovely, right? And there's another one coming up, I believe, with
Victor Wayne,
Victor Wayne.
Jacob Dine.
Are you going to take that one?
Yeah.
Good.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That what?
Bonnie's
Bonnie's
Jacob
son.
Dine's mother.
Who?
Bonnie.
You're kidding.
Victor Wayne?
No.
And Jacob
There's
Dine.
no disconnections.
Jacob Dine
Jacob
is my
Dine,
son
okay.
too.
So that's your son. So are you taking his workshop?
Oh,
Is he making you pay for that?
I support my son in any way I can.
Okay. Well, why don't I
Lives in
say?
Spain now.
Supportive parents.
Lives in Spain for
Yeah, I
3
know
years.
that. That's great. How's he like Spain? Where is he? Barcelona?
No, he's in El Puerto in Sicily.
So what brought him there?
He had a workshop in Sevilla and met somebody.
One of his little Spanish painting students with their high heel shoes
Yeah.
and all their jewelry.
Oh, look at that. All right. Well, my point is, You're in Wausau, and David has been bringing you some top-notch talent. I mean, really, the artists that you'll be working with are high caliber. So absorb as much as you possibly can. Because this kind of education, like here in Wausau, is like, for the price of paying, it's like, it's awesome. Yeah. So when you listen, when they say something, you listen. They're all professionals, they know what they're talking about, and you'll save yourself a ton of work, like honestly, like we cut right to the chase, kind of like the way I'm doing with you. And so just remember that, it's very particular, you know, like I've never seen anything like this, like where these type of artists come here in Wausau and teach that way to a group like you. It's really, that's special. It is. I wish I had that, you know, so it really is. It's very, so cherish it.